Well, the front cover of this album sure does leave a lot to the imagination, even though it's kind of a blatant ripoff of Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Pictures at an Exhibition. But, with prog rockers, it's share and share alike, right? Rick Wakeman and the English Rock Ensembles, a gallery of the imagination. So Rick Wakeman, I think we all kind of know who Rick Wakeman is at this point. For those uninitiated, Rick Wakeman is a legendary keyboardist, pianist from the UK, getting his start, I believe, with the Straubs. Could be kind of confusing it with somebody else, but I'm pretty sure it was the Straubs. And then, joining Yes in the early 70s, doing a lot of solo records as well. The man has a discography that dwarfs anybody else. Outside of maybe like Frank Zappa and Buckethead, I think Prog Archives has 81 albums from him, and that's just studio recordings. We're not even touching the endless array of live albums that he's done as well. Now, this is the second one, though, if we're taking this into a little bit of a bite-sized chunk, with the whole English Rock Ensemble. The first one being The Red Planet back in 2020. And as much as I love Rick Wakeman, I love his concerts, but his studio performances and his studio albums, I feel like it's quantity over quality sometimes. I mean, the man's put out 81 records, so not all of them can be bangers. That being said, you would think that there'd be some diamonds in the rough. So The Red Planet, released in 2020 with the English Rock Ensemble, it brought me back to the classic era of, the Six Wives of King Henry VIII, myths and legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, as well as Journey to the Center of the Earth. So it really brought back that prog aspect that I love with Rick Wakeman. And this is the first one with the English Rock Ensemble with vocals, with lyrics, and with a singer. But the gang's all here. Everybody that was found on the Red Planet is also found here. Dave Colquhoun, on guitars, Lee Pomeroy on bass, and Ash Sloan on drums. So the three gentlemen that they had to flush out Rick Wakeman's work are back here again, with the addition of Haley Sanderson on vocals. And I think Haley does a really good job of bringing back that angelic vocal works that we had from Jenner to the Center of the Earth, Journey to the Center of the Earth, as well as the smatterings here and there that we had with the female vocals on 1984, as well as Myths and Legends. There's 12 tracks across just under an hour's worth of music, so unlike the Red Planet, which had these bigger tracks that really allow for us to stretch our legs and to get into the rhythms and grooves, the shorter pieces of music on here, I think the longest one being about 6, almost 7 minutes long, A, create a little bit more of bite-sized chunks, but B, doesn't really allow for us to really stretch our legs and get into a lot of these tracks. Now, I know that this is a loose concept album, very similar to the loose concept album of the Red Planet, being Mars and all the different avenues and landscapes of the Red Planet. But this one is more of the creative process, the imagination, and I think Rick actually wanted to have this him playing this album live in an art gallery with artists painting as he's kind of doing this. So it's all the different facets of the imagination, the creative process, and you can hear this on a couple of tracks. There are certain tracks on here that I really do like. The opening track of Hidden Depths really bring us back to that 70s really experimental and creative process of Rick Wakeman's work and his kind of processing of music and creation, as well as the fourth track of The Creek. So there's different facets in different areas, and I like that it's not just pigeonholed into one style. I can't really say that there's a downside to the Red Planet, but if there is, it would be it's all kind of one sameness that's really played around with it. And this one does have a lot of different facets in it. but that does kind of work against it as well. There are a few tracks on here that are a little stark in comparison to some of the other tracks on here. Cuban Carnival, for one, really brought me out on how different and how bombastic it felt in comparison to a lot of the other tracks on here. It does kind of disrupt the flow that we were going to, and because it's the 7th track, the 6 tracks preceding it, I was kind of getting the vibe, I was getting the ideas, and it was very flowing, and it felt like I was kind of like on this really nice kind of river cruise. And then when the Cuban Carnival comes up, and we go from this very like proggy instrumental with a lot of like very heavenly singing styles that we have from Haley, to this calypso Caribbean style, it definitely was like a very harsh awakening, and I didn't quite know how to process that, and it still kind of leaves a little bit of the sore thumb on this album. Now, that being said, the rest of the album is still quite enjoyable and quite pleasant. Dinner Party, A Day Spent on the Pier, and The Eyes of a Child are very lovely, very like, I call them like Sunday afternoon tracks. You can put it on in the background and kind of get swept away from it if you want to pay attention to it. But if you want to leave it as background sounds and music, you're not going to kind of lose anything. It's not going to be knocking on your door for attention. It's not attention seekers. The Visitation, being the 11th track, is also quite interesting and lovely. The biggest track at 6 minutes and 55 seconds, My Moonlight Dream, is probably the highlight for me. A, because it's the longest, but B, there's a lot of different areas and nooks and crannies in this track that allow me to kind of get lost in the fold and really get enraptured by what Rick and the boys are doing on here. And once again, I gotta praise Haley's singing styles on here. It brings this new dimension to the music that these guys are putting down. So in the end, I will say that as much as I was looking forward to this record, especially after The Red Planet, I was a little bit disappointed, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it still showcases that a guy that's in his twilight era as a musician and a composer is still able to really deliver and really give an outstanding record. Is it his best record? Absolutely not. Is it his worst record? Absolutely not. It's even above his middle of the road albums, and that's partly due to the plethora of albums that he has out there. If you haven't listened to Rick Wakeman in a hot minute, I think this is going to be a really good treat for you. If you are a voracious listener of Rick Wakeman and you consume everything that he has put down, I think you're also going to enjoy this. But if you're just kind of a lackluster, you know of Rick Wakeman from Yes, but that's kind of about it, I would honestly start somewhere else. Start with The Red Planet, start with Six Wives, start with King Arthur, start with Journey to the Center of the Earth. And once you've consumed all of those, then come to this one, because you're not necessarily missing all that much with this record, but if you do come to this record, you're going to have a good time. So in the end, I will say A Gallery of the Imagination by Rick Wakeman and the English Rock Ensemble is one I would ultimately stream. Not his worst, not his best, but good, give it a spin. But that's all I've got for you guys today. What did you guys think about this record? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think Rick Wakeman is just treading water and has been treading water since the late 70s? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And I think that's all I got for you guys today. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.